Hi, and welcome to Spectrum Projection, a media review podcast where we actors who may fit into the autism spectrum. I'm Hannah, an actually autistic person with a master's in literature, focusing on the analysis of disability in fiction and in memoir.
And I'm Tilda. And within this podcast, I have hidden the instructions for a secret ritual that will release me from my interdimensional prison and allow me to once again wreak havoc upon your pathetic realm.
Trigger warnings in the description.
So, how you been?
You know I've been bad. This is not that I've actually been bad. Unfortunately, friends,
We have some tragic news.
I'm a gamer. I mean, why are we pretending that we're above this? We're both into video games. Gamer is bad, but I have been one of those absolute morons who's been wanting to get a PlayStation 5 and wanted to buy one, like an idiot. So that's been my week.
Honestly, how foolish of you to expect to be able to purchase a PlayStation.
Man, it's the way it always goes at this time of year. And I've never bought a console at launch because I always feel like I'm above it. But, between COVID and my own hyperfixating brain, my brain has decided, you need it. You need this now. And it's just, you can't have it. No one can. Nobody gets one. So it's been my whole week, and poor Tilda's been putting up with me losing my goddamn mind because we're recording this the day after the PlayStation technically launched in the UK.
Technically.
All 5 units. So
That work is doing a lot. We talked about those people who pulled the heist of the century, basically.
yeah, I'm glad I didn't pre-order it, because you may be thinking, well, why didn't you pre-order it? One, never do that. Don't do that.
Never pre-order a fucking game anything. Do not trust game companies.
We'll get to this because eventually we will analyse some video games. I'm annoyed because the one video game I wanted to analyse fairly soon is one that I would need a PlayStation to be able to talk about. So I guess we're just going to put it on the back burner for now. But my point is more, if you had pre-ordered a PlayStation, specifically from the UK retailer Game, you might not have gotten one because somebody broke into the warehouse the day before they released and stole basically all of them.
I can't even be mad with those people because that's a smart heist.
Yeah, what you have to do is just drive in and you've got several £1,000s of free money in the back of your van.
It's like the people we talk. I bring this up all the time because it's one of my favorite heists of all time. I have favorite heists. So in Sweden, for those of you who don't know, in Sweden, one of our biggest holidays is Midsummer. It's really up there. Not as important as Christmas or, I don't know, equal with Easter, I would say. But anyway, the thing you need for a proper Swedish midsummer is specifically Swedish-grown strawberries, because they are sweeter than the ones grown down south. I'm not going to go into it. But anyway...
It will be a 20-minute thing about strawberries.
So I think this actually happened a couple of years in a row, but before midsummer, the few days before midsummer, people basically go ape shit. Everyone wants specifically Swedish strawberries, and if you fail to get Swedish strawberries, your family will not love you anymore. So a couple of years ago, someone stole basically a van with I think over 1,000 liters of strawberries, and they never got caught. And it's such a clever heist because around midsummer, all rules are out the window. You can literally buy strawberries from the side of the road from some random guy and nobody asks any questions. So you can bet your ass that these people made bank on these strawberries and faced no consequences. And I love stealing such a small, not really that valuable object, but stealing it at the right time. In the right place.
If they'd stolen these PlayStations just a couple months down the line, they wouldn't have been able to sell them for the £2,000+ I've seen them going for.
Yeah, can you really be mad with them? That's those people are go-getters. Also, I think we should clarify, disclaimer, we don't endorse crimes.
Yeah.
Crimes are bad, and if we ever said anything else, it's a joke. It's parody.
Your Honour, if you're playing this in a court,
Your Honour,
it was legally a joke.
Ladies and gentlemen and gentlemen of the court. It's a joke.
It's weird, actually, because you mentioned Midsummer, and I think that's kind of a good segue into the actual topic of this week, because it's very much about a period of summer, and it's one of my favourite shows of all time. Not an exaggeration. I wrote part of my master's dissertation on this show.
And I've written several fanfics.
We can all admit to this. The show is Gravity Falls. It's a Disney TV show from that era of Disney TV just getting really, really good. Like, it's insane how high quality their TV is when their films are kind of garbo right now. It's beyond belief. And we are going to talk about other shows from that because this entire era of Disney TV shows really...
I'm really loving a lot of the Disney animation coming out right now. Mm-hmm. DuckTales is great. Owl House is great. Are there any other ones that I'm forgetting?
I mean, we've watched so many of them. We've watched Gravity Falls enough times for it to basically be a category in itself. We really like Star versus the Forces of Evil universe. I forget which it's called.
Star versus the Forces of Evil, yeah.
Yes, we really liked that.
And controversial opinion, I guess, I quite like the ending.
Yeah,
and we're not going to get into it because I could write an essay about it at some point.
We're just going to piss off every different fan base we can think of every week.
Listen, that's my goal. I just realised, I don't think in these intros we ever talk about what I've been doing. I always ask you how you are. No, it's on me. I forgive.
Unfortunately, you work from home, so my assumption is always played a lot of Stellaris or something.
Shit.
I mean, I can edit that out if it's too personal.
It's fine.
Have I revealed too much of your identity to say you play an absolute shit ton of Stellaris?
And I've never won a game. I've never even finished a game because they take forever.
See, the game of rot is infecting us both, but in very different ways.
No, yeah, I've not really been doing anything. You are right. You're right not to ask me about my day. You know what?
If anything ever happens, be sure to know that I will ask Tilda what she's been up to. Mostly we've just been finding excuses to rewatch Gravity Falls. It was very hard to stop with the 2 episodes we're going to talk about today.
Yeah.
I had to force myself to stop. If you know the show, there's a couple of characters you might think we're talking about. And before I say who those characters might be, massive warning to people who haven't seen it, we are going to talk about the big spoiler of the show. The
huge spoilers. Again, I feel like this is the same thing. When I tell you to skip the first 2 seasons of Next Gen, I mean it. When I tell you that if you're interested in watching Gravity Falls and you don't know any of the twists, just watch it. Because I normally don't care about spoilers. There are some stuff in this show that is like legitimately so enjoyable to see unfold on your own. We had that experience of showing it to a friend for the first time.
Oh yeah, it was wonderful.
It was great. Just seeing that, and clearly they had an amazing experience seeing that. So if you haven't seen it, I guess pause this episode and go watch the show.
It's on Disney Plus, and it's in Disney Plus in every country. It's been weirdly censored in 1 or 2 tiny ways, but they aren't significant enough to significantly change the show. I will say that it is quite short. It is only 2 seasons, and the episodes are all about 22 minutes each, so it's not a huge investment of your time. It's definitely worth it. But yeah, if you haven't watched it, watch it now, and then come back to this point where we've paused. Okay, you're back now. So
what do you mean? Oh, wait! I thought you were talking to me. I got confused.
No. Why do you think I'm talking to you?
I didn't go anywhere.
But basically, the characters you think might be an obvious choice for this would probably be Dipper. Probably be the spoiler character who I'm going
redacted.
To say. Spoiler character in square brackets redacted. No, we're going to say their name because they are in one of these episodes. But like Ford is also a pretty strong choice. I think you could also make the argument that Fiddleford could fit into some less than great stereotypes about autism. We're not talking about any of them. We're talking about our literal shining star.
Best girl.
This is who we were talking about when we were talking about Kristen Schaal's greatest role, who we both adore. She's weirdly, if you ever get into fandom, don't, for one, but if you ever do get into fandom, she's weirdly not very liked.
That depends on like what part of the fandom you are. There are definitely some people on YouTube who make stupid videos about this character.
About the fact she's 8 years old and she's selfish and therefore
she's not 8, they're 12.
12, sorry, because
like
it's a very big point that they turn 13 at the end of the summer. But like, they're a little kid and everyone's like, it's ridiculous that she's sometimes a bit selfish and impulsive or whatever. Or she's just very annoying. And it's like, you know what? So was I. I still am many of those things. And I can admire a character who they give that kind of depth.
Should we say the name of the character?
Yes, her name's Mabel. Mabel Pines.
Mabel.
We love her, obviously. She is based on the show creator's real-life twin, Ariel, who they both grew up in the 80s, so the show is weirdly timeless, but also distinctly 80s in a way that's hard to pin down.
Even though it does take place in the summer of 2012, specifically.
Yeah, it's very strange, but it has got that timeless quality, which means I've watched it a lot of times. There is a joke in one of these episodes where they quote the year it came out, and it just seems weird now, and it gets funnier the more time that passes. But you may be thinking, if you know her, like, that seems like not, like, how are you getting this reading from her? Like, because obviously Mabel's a very confident, out there kind of person. Basically, what I've been saying for a while is that the way that autism typically presents in little girls is in a way that often just seems invisible because it's kind of written off as this is how little girls are. It's kind of hard to pin down, but basically we'll talk about it in these 2 episodes. Might as well just start with the first one because I feel like it's probably going to be easier to talk about in the context of the episode. So the first episode we're talking about is Boyz Crazy. Boyz spelled with a Z, naturally. Yeah. It's series 1, episode 17, and it was released on the 19th of April 2013. It was written by Alex Hirsch and Matt Chapman and directed by John Aoshima. It's one of the series episodes before the main plot kicks into high gear, so it's very slice of lifey. Essentially, it starts off with Wendy, who's the older teenage girl who works in the Mystery Shack, which is, if you don't know and you're still watching this and you haven't watched the show, you don't have any interest in it. It's this tourist trap that the kid's great uncle, their grunkle, Stan runs. And I'm going to let Tilda explain who Stan is, because I can't really do it. Don't call me out.
Well, Grunkle Stan is, I think, the most quotable characters in the entire show.
Mm-hmm. We're probably going to stop and quote him several times.
Yeah, I had to stop myself from writing down just everything he says. The sort of concept of the show is that Mabel and Dipper, these 12-year-old twins, are sent to the great uncle in Oregon from California to spend the summer. And Stan runs this weird tourist trap called the Mystery Shack. You know, that is just full of these, weird, cryptic, super fake bullshit stuff.
Like very much a jackalope that's very clearly antlers stapled onto a taxidermy
visibly
rabbit.
Fake.
Yeah, like...
But, Dipper discovers pretty quickly that there are like real strange things going on in Gravity Falls. He finds a mysterious journal and starts, exploring the all strange kinds of fantasy and science fiction creatures that exist in this town, Gravity Falls.
Yeah.
Stan, meanwhile, maintains that it's all fake and that none of this stuff is real, which is, the sort of like dynamic early on with the kids will be like, oh, we got attacked by a
giant monster of some kind.
Yeah.
And he'd just be like, yeah, kids have such imagination or whatever. Like, very much that trope of, like, kids shows where, like, kids goes on wild adventures and no adults believe them. And Stan is great. Basically, what's happening here is one of the employees of the Mystery Shack, Wendy, who Dipper has a crush on, she's a lot older than him. Not a lot as in she's an adult, she's like 16.
Yeah.
And he's turning 13 soon. So it's not a ridiculous age gap.
But at that age, it is definitely significant a big age gap.
The show makes it very clear that, like, it wouldn't work if they ever did, and that Wendy wouldn't be interested anyway because he is significantly younger to her in maturity.
Yeah, but they are friends.
And what they're doing is they're watching CCTV and making fun of people on the CCTV. And Mabel comes over to them, and while they're doing that, she literally says, never mind that, let's talk about why I'm doing this dance. Just like a complete non sequitur out of nowhere, like, I'm going to talk about what I like. And we mentioned this in the Gene episode, but it's a very common thing of, like, autistic people who don't have social skills who will just launch directly into exactly what it is that they're excited about or that they feel comfortable talking about. And for Mabel, in this, it's this boy band. This boy band called Several Times.
Spelt in a funny way, because of course.
SEV'RAL times.
Which is very clearly a pastiche of, like, Backstreet Boys and similar acts from the 90s.
Yeah.
Except the thing I love is that, like, in most of these boy bands, they tend to, like, try to have, like, different flavors of hot boy. Whereas in this one, it's literally just blonde, blue-eyed. They look the exact same, but they have different hairstyle, and that's it.
Mabel really, really loves him. And this is a big part of, like, something that really opened my eyes to the prevalence of autism. What people have kind of coined female autism, which is a bit, fraught messaging, not exactly accurate, because obviously men can present the exact same way for different things. But for this, it's women who show autistic symptoms, but in a way that is so typically feminine that people just assume that's, they're just being a girl. So the obsessive behaviour thing often doesn't get picked up in little girls who have obsessions with stuff that little girls are supposed to like. So stickers or unicorns or boy bands. Boy bands is a huge one. If you ever see any post about someone who loves a boy band so much that they're, like, crying and can't function, and genuinely it makes up a huge portion of their life, a lot of those people, if they're not on the spectrum, they are neurodivergent in some way. And that's not a derogatory thing, not at all. Like, it's just how a lot of people who have brains wired that way will engage with things that they enjoy. Like it's a 0 or 100 thing.
Yeah.
Either I love this and it's all I can think about and it's all I can fixate on, or completely indifferent.
But it's the sort of thing that slips under the radar because a lot of people are already very dismissive of teenage girls' interests. And all teenage girls are just stupid and crazy and they like things way too much.
Yeah, and they kind of like address that that's kind of the public attitude to that in this, because Dipper and Wendy literally say they're a manufactured product of a bloated music industry, which is a weird thing to hear a child say.
I know, it's Dipper has a lot of great lines that are, punching above his weight intellectually, something he read somewhere. But yeah, she's excited because the band is going to play at the, what did they say?
It's like the Gravity Falls Tax Center or something. Like it's a non-building. It's so tiny. They're all talking about how like boy bands are fake and that Mabel's kind of like liking them for no good reason, and she just keeps dancing in their faces and saying, "You guys can't ruin this for me." Like it's the kind of like focused, I love this, I'm fixated on this, it's making me so happy that like literally it doesn't matter what you could say or what happens to around this, it's for me and I'm excited. Basically, her two friends, Candy and Grenda, come over because they're waiting to all go to the concert together. They're going to go buy tickets.
Yeah, getting hyped up together and doing makeup and stuff.
Grenda has a really deep voice. This is only relevant because some of the lines we'll quote from her, you need to imagine in a deep voice because the joke is the voice is really deep. It's kind of
I think there's a discussion to be had around Grenda, but I don't know that we are the ones to have it.
Yeah, I mean, it's like with Bob's Burgers, there is a female character played by a man, but the joke in Bob's Burgers is more that Tina is monotone. It's not that her voice is deep. It's like the delivery is more of it, whereas in this, the joke is often just this little girl has a very deep voice.
Yeah.
So, there's a discussion there, and
it's part of this sort of concept of like how everyone in Gravity Falls is, strange in some way. It's actually plot relevant later on, but it's a town full of people who are weird in some way, but it's the sort of overarching messaging of the show is that being weird is actually okay and cool, whatever.
Yeah, like Mabel really bonds with these two girls who she meets. Candy is also very sweet. They're voiced by the same voice actor who does Bemo's voice in Adventure Time.
That's where I've heard it from.
I know, it'll drive you nuts if you don't remember. It's like, who is it? I know this. But
her thing is that she kind of, at least early on, that she does like weird little inventions like taping forks to her fingers and stuff like that.
So she can pick up more popcorn, that kind of thing. But yeah, they go upstairs and in Mabel's room she's got a massive shrine of this boy band, and I definitely did that when I was a younger girl. Like my thing was not boy bands. Unfortunately, my thing was Doctor Who. This is my cross to bear.
That is definitely more embarrassing.
But like I had the same thing where it's just like a huge wall covered in tons of pictures, and like I'd cut out things from magazines and I'd put out like tons of tiny little stickers, and I ruined that wall.
Oh, I only just now remembered. I had like an entire wall of my room that was just posters that I got out of magazines, and they were like a lot of them were from this Pokemon magazine that I would buy from the grocery store whenever I had the chance, and I just like basically covered the entirety of the wallpaper on that wall in posters. And like looking back, I realized that probably looked weird.
Yeah, mine looked terrifying.
But it was like there was something so satisfying about sort of building this mural kind of. It was like things that I liked.
It was very much like an expression of yourself. Because at that age, people forget as they get older, you don't really have any control over how you can express yourself. You don't really get to buy your own clothes. And if you do, you don't get to wear them that often. Or at least like, even because in England, obviously, we wear school uniforms. But even if you go to school, there are like dress rules and all that shit.
See, I kind of can't relate to that. For one thing, we don't have uniforms in Swedish schools. And also, with the, your own room thing. When I was a kid, I forget why the instigation was, but basically we were going to like refurnish our rooms, and my mum basically asked me, do you want like a walk-in closet? And I was like, yeah. And so we together designed like this sort of like, walk-in closet, and then this sort of shelf area that came out around the bed. So I had this sort of like shelving around the bed. I'm not explaining it very well, but yeah. And my parents just built that because they're quite handy.
Yeah, I mean, it should be said that, like, your parents built, like, your whole house.
Literally, yeah.
So
well,
it's
not on their own. They had help from family members and stuff. But yeah, my parents built our house, or their house now, because they don't live there anymore. And over the years, they have continued to build onto it, and now they've built the whole barn, because my mom got horses.
Your mom is a horse girl.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to break this news to you, Tilda, but your mom is a horse girl.
I know.
But yeah, my point is, like, you can acknowledge that that's like a very outlier experience.
Yeah,
but
yeah,
it's also like, as a teenager, even if you get your own room and you get like some freedom of buying your clothes, you're too young to really have like the grasp of communication to know how to express who you are. You just kind of know what things you like, and you don't really know how that shapes you yet. So it's
and
kind
the way
of like,
you know how to express that is just put those things on the wall.
and like it was a big way that hyperfixation works. It's like, I'm going to fixate on this through a project, and therefore I won't just be like going in circles. So like they had this big shrine with the boys from several times, who are Craigie G, Craigie C, Leggy P, Chubby Z, and Deep Chris.
He's the fat one. Deep Chris is, and they all look the same.
Like it's ridiculous. It's very, very much a like weirdly pointed commentary about 80s boy bands, 90s boy bands, but they were all essentially the same.
Yeah.
And the girls are talking about how those boys are going to fall in love with them, and their plan is to like go to this concert and meet these guys and have them fall in love with them. It's like, I know there's, what's it called? One Direction?
Yeah.
One Direction fanfic that's literally about, I went to a concert and he fell in love with me in the crowd, so I know this is a phenomenon.
Yeah.
My parents sold me to One Direction.
Stop! I feel mean that I find that so funny, because that was written by some 14-year-old who is learning about themselves,
falling into this exact thing we're talking about, where you express yourself through the things you like.
But that meme, I guess, every time I hear it, it just tickles me so much, because I don't know, it's so funny. This is because we kind of like slipped into the topic of fanfic. Sometimes I feel so alone living as a Swedish person in the UK, because I have nobody I can share the thing my eyes are forced to receive from the Swedish meme blogs I follow on Tumblr. And today I read a... See, I can't explain it because it's way too much context, but I need you to know that this post that was like, Bamse X Lille Skutt becomes canon and Jimmy Åkesson abdicates his role as party leader is a post that punched me so hard in the sternum and just made me feel things that I can't describe. And I'm not going to expand on that because I can't explain it.
I know half the context of that, I think. But yeah, I'm sorry, I can't give you the Swedish meme validation that you so desperately crave.
I'm so alone. Anyway, episode.
We are getting very sidetracked. We'll try and speed up a bit with the plot.
Yep.
Basically, they all get ready to go to this thing. Subplot happens with Wendy and her boyfriend. I don't want to go into too much detail about it, but there are some really great moments between Dipper and Stan.
Yeah.
That parallels some moments between Dipper and Ford in the other episode we talk about. And I think that's maybe a discussion for a different kind of podcast, unfortunately. But they have a whole thing where Wendy's shitty boyfriend, Robbie, keeps standing her up and being generally a teenage boy about it, and she wants to break up with him, and then he plays a song for her that's hypnotic, and she decides not to break up with him, and Dipper's suspicious, and that's basically the whole thing.
Yeah.
Like, it's the whole, there's a secret subliminal message in music thing. It's that old chestnut. So, back to the girls' plot. Dipper's complaining about, like, the fact that Wendy got back together with Robbie, and Mabel says, girls just like musicians. You'll understand when you're older. It's like, we're twins! We're the same age. And it's, honestly, it kind of brings up a topic that I think is really important when talking about autism in girls. The thing of, like, infantilization is such a huge part of how people perceive autism in popular culture and in culture in general. And a lot of girls kind of project this idea of maturity because they mask so much more frequently, because there's a lot more expectation on them to, be out there and socializing or to take on responsibilities at a younger age.
Yeah.
So the idea that they mature faster means it's a lot harder for people to kind of like line up this idea of autism as an infantilizing thing with girls who are, maturing faster. And you can't have those two things coexist.
And Mabel is very much, she's like a happy-go-lucky, fun-loving kid, but she does... One of the big overarching plots for her is her interest in getting a boyfriend, basically, and, having crushes and stuff. So she's clearly reaching for that sort of, teenage romance, not lifestyle, but trying to pursue some interests that are conceived as more mature than, say, her sticker collections or stuffed toys interest and stuff like that.
Yeah, and it's like, because I'm ace, so obviously my own personal experience is very different to that. But, like, that whole thing of, like, if I can get to the next step of maturity, I'll have made it and I won't feel as awkward and insecure about the person I am, is a really common thing. I remember I had it all the way through high school because I was like, if I can just, move out to uni and then eventually I'll graduate and then I won't have to do things anymore. And it's like, that's not how life works, honey. Like, Mabel is very fixated on, like, getting those, as opposed to, like, what happiness having a boyfriend might bring her. A lot of it comes down to the thing of, like, what having a boyfriend would mean for her in terms of, like, a landmark, I guess, or a goalpost.
Or having a summer romance, because, that's a thing that feels like, something out of a movie or a book or something.
And I mean, the way the show ends, like, it's in the credits, but there's a moment where, like, you can see this tree where she's carved all these different crushes she had through the summer, like Mabel and whoever. And the last one she carves is Mabel and herself, or, like, just Mabel plus nobody or whatever. I forget what the exact thing is.
I don't remember this part at all, so...
No, there's a moment at the end where she carves basically Mabel and no name, no boy, and she's basically acknowledging she doesn't need to force herself to have that connection. She can just let it happen on its own, which is a really sweet, like, arc for her in this. It's obviously not explored in much detail, but in this one, she's so obsessed with, like, dating these boys that, like, she cannot wait to, like, meet these boy band guys and have them fall in love with her. And the plot of the story is, like, her losing track of, like, how to actually interact with them.
Yeah.
Because she's so dedicated to that goal. Because, like, they go to the concert, they can't get tickets, it's sold out. I feel that pain right now, Mabel. It's not for a concert, but it's for a PlayStation. But I feel that pain. They don't get it. They're devastated. One of them says everything is terrible forever. I've been there. I get that.
Earlier this day.
I just really want a fucking PlayStation.
I know you do.
I'll stop talking about it, guys. Tilda's had to deal with this for me enough.
You and your gamer brainworms.
Yeah, it's terrible. They don't get in, and they decide they're going to break in and see these guys.
Sneak in the back.
More subplot with Stan. Stan's stacking cans for the apocalypse. Doesn't relate to anything.
Just quotes.
Yeah,
it gets a bit hallucinatory towards the end.
Yeah, also Apocalypse is one of his.
They sneak into the backstage area and they find the several times dressing room. And when they open the door, it should be mentioned before that earlier Dipper and Wendy made a joke about, like, how they're probably grown in vats or whatever.
Yeah.
And turns out they literally are.
Yeah, they're all clones.
And also they live in a hamster cage, giant hamster cage for some reason.
Giant hamster cage is a weird theme in this show that comes up a couple times. Giant hamster stuff just exists in this world.
It's just very funny.
Also, one of them says, "We're clones, dog," as they walk in.
They all have their, like, little, like, what do you call it, ending phrase? Like, dog or G.
Yeah. They say a lot of, like, 2010 slang, which is just really funny. Because it was already dated when they were making it.
And it gets funnier the more time passes.
They're in a cage. The girls all hide as their record producer comes in. And he's, like, the most stereotypical, like, shitty music producer, scratching his ass with a gold record, the whole 9 yards.
Telling them that, you weren't performing well tonight. Remember that you can be easily replaced by one of your brothers. And then he makes one of the vat-grown clones dance.
It's very, very strange. He leaves. The girls decide they're going to try and break the band out. When they see the band and Mabel's like, oh my god, I'm meeting them, she does the hand flapping thing. That is, like, very common in stimming. That's definitely a stretch, I think. But I definitely see it in that, like, the whole, squeeing, that fandom term of just someone who's so excited they, like, jump up and down and shake their hands. That's just stimming. And people make fun of it because it's cringy. But it's how you get the excited energy out.
It should be noted that Hannah did air quotes around the word cringy there because, cringe culture is dead.
Fucking everything's cringy. Enjoy what you want to enjoy. Just don't be a dickhead.
This planet is fucking cringy, to be honest.
Humanity is cringe.
But I'm just imagining, like, that picture of, the little blue dot, like the Earth suspended in a sunbeam, and it's just that meme. Click. This is going in my cringe compilation.
Basically, yeah. They basically tell her all about their situation. They're kept in a cage and the record producer doesn't let them outside or see the sun. They've never seen trees before. One of them wants to kiss a tree.
I don't know what it is, but I want to kiss it.
This world's straight brutal, dog. And Mabel says, that is straight brutal, Chubby Z. So it's just so sincere. And, like, it's again with the Gene thing of, like, what they say sounds like a joke and, like, they're making fun, but they are just, saying what's expected to be said. They break the boys out. They sneak them back to the mystery shack. The subplot happens with Dipper and Stan trying to find out about the music in the CD. Whatever.
There's
There's a wonderful joke.
I need to put... It's so good. Stan tries to place this CD. He calls the CD an LP and tries to play it on a gramophone. And then, some stuff happened. And when we cut back, Dipper, who is, apparently the kind of kid who just has a bunch of random skills that he picked up from somewhere, has managed to convert the CD into a record so they can play it.
I will also point out that Dipper does put the CD on the record player and it shoots sparks everywhere. It's like, I feel like we're doing something wrong here.
Oh, this show is just really funny.
It's the funniest.
Like, every time I watch it again, I'm like, I love it.
I've seen it upwards of 10 times and Stan's lines still make me laugh out loud every time. Like, laugh out loud genuinely. But the girls will sneak the boys back inside a duffel bag, all 5 of them in one duffel bag.
There's a great bit where, like, they get up to the room and they open the duffel bag and, like, all these boys, they sort of, like, fall out and they're, like, posing as they fall to the floor.
I will also say my favourite line as they come in with the bag and Dip asks them, what's in the bag? And Mabel goes, money that we stole. And then Candy adds, yeah, we will cut you. And then Mabel says, let's go away from here now. And that's the end of the scene. The whole let's go away from here now is such a, like, I've said stuff that's, like, as scripted as that in these kind of situations. Not this exact situation, obviously. The record company guy comes up after them and is like, I know you guys, I know they went this way. I was following their frosted tips. Seuss, who's the handyman there.
Yeah. Oh, Seuss is great.
Seuss is also great. Voiced by Alex Hirsch, same as Stan. If there's a good character, there's a goddamn, 60% chance it's voiced by Alex Hirsch.
He made the show and he just voices all the characters. And also the main character is based on him and his sister.
Yeah. But, the record guy shows up and says, have you seen any perfect boys around here? And Seuss says,
only when I look in the mirror, up top! And then he high-fives himself.
Seuss is wonderful. The record guy decides, I'm going to keep driving around. I know they're around here somewhere. And the goat eats his license plate off the car.
Oh yeah, Stan's goat that he has, that people in the fandom were convinced for the longest time had something to do with the real big conspiracy. But it didn't.
Apparently it was a deliberate fake out, which this show has a lot of, so it's wonderful for that.
It's a great fake out because they literally don't do anything. They just have a goat that lives there.
It fucking kills me that this show has so many, legitimately elaborate theories that are all wrong, but the stupidest theory you could come up with is the correct one.
I know, it's my favorite thing.
He has a secret twin.
Secret identical twin brother. Secret evil twin, depending on how you look at it.
I mean...
I love Ford, but...
We'll get into that. But, yeah, it's hilarious that that's what they went with, and I love it because it's great and they actually pull it off. Basically, they realise we've got to keep the boy band in the mystery shack until this guy gives up looking for them, because he's just going to put them back in a cage. They can't survive out in the wild on their own. So they decide to keep what Mabel calls a pet boyfriend we can do whatever we want with. That's not a great sign, Mabel. They are people.
I mean, technically, they are pretty, close to... animals in intellect and behaviour.
Yeah, they have a montage now of them having the boys in the house, and this is the point where Stan technically doesn't know anything weird is going on, so they keep doing all these montages where they hide in the ceiling, or they all try and disappear, and Mabel's trying to teach them how to do normal human things.
There's an amazing bit where she's trying to teach them how to drink from a glass of water rather than from one of those drippy hamster bottle things, and I mean, it's a visual joke, so it's not going to land when you explain it, but it's just a bunch of these
if you can imagine the
failing miserably to drink from a glass of water.
It's the funniest thing.
It's so funny.
They also do ride the boys around like they're horses at one point, which is really funny. Another scene with Stan and Dipper. This is the bit that I love the most in this whole episode.
Best line in the whole episode.
I do love I'll rewind your face. It's fantastic.
Yeah, but... finally, a good reason to punch a teenager in the face.
I've quoted that so many times. I'm amazed that line isn't a meme. It's so funny.
I think it is like a tiny meme. But yeah, because they figured out what Robbie's been doing to Wendy, and they're going to go out and confront him.
And I do want to talk about that subplot a little bit because I want to say something about it because it is one of the things that made me realise how great this show is how they handled the ending of that plot. But we'll get to it.
We'll get to it.
Smash cut to the girls playing Braid Train, where they all sit in a line and braid each other's hair with a boy band. And it turns out that their boss has now been arrested because his license plate is missing because the goat ate it. So Mabel's decided that she doesn't want to let them go.
Yeah, the other two are like, oh, we can, let them go now because the producer has been put in prison. And Mabel is like, no. She's like got a little bit. What is it? Did they just say boy crazy? Or
Yeah, they call her boy crazy, which is the title of the episode.
Yeah.
And she does say, "Every boy I loved this summer left me. I'm not gonna let it happen again." And like that's a very like black and white kind of like. I don't want to say there's like naturally in a behavior pattern in people with autism to be this kind of possessive or whatever, but there is a thing of like things will change. Probably for the better, but they'll change and I don't want to deal with that. Change is terrifying because I like what I can predict and what I know. So, like, she kicks the other two out. She makes the boy band aggressively dance at them and kick Candy and Grenda out. Sorry, I had to stop because I read the line that Grenda says next and it made me laugh again.
Do you mean she's not aight?
She's not aight, Chubby Z.
It's so good. Oh,
it's so great. And then, like, after they kick out
Grenda and Candy,
the boys are like, oh, I don't know if we should really do anything else, like this was kind of intense, and Mabel's like, no, we're gonna braid train right now like we were before, it's all fine, it's the same. And
she's clearly, you know, lost sight of the fact that they were doing this for these boys' sake.
Like there is a part of this obsessional behaviour that obviously obsessional thought patterns aren't people who have autism's fault, it's just part of their brain. But the problem is with any obsessive behaviour is that it can very easily become possessive or controlling, or it can like make parts of your life a lot worse. And like it's a thing that like I truly believe in having like pride in your autism and having pride in like your like neurodivergence. But there is still an element of like you need to step back and realise like where the limit is. Like I used to have one interest as a teenager, my one hyperfixation. And then Doctor Who went bad. It went so bad, really, really fast. The quality dropped in a lot of ways. And it genuinely felt like I had lost a friend. Like, it felt like I was mourning. I was beyond depressed about it. Because I had nothing else in my life.
And you might say that that's silly because it's a TV show, but it feels real when it happens, doesn't it?
Like, when you obsess to that level where it's the only thing you have in your life, you're gonna take those kind of bits of information, like personal attacks, like big emotional confrontations. It's why when people make fun of people who are upset when a certain show ends, or like when an actor says or does something that's upsetting, or like whatever.
Or when a show naming no names has just a terrible ending.
You can guess what aired yesterday for us.
We didn't watch it.
No.
I didn't, but I have a Tumblr.
For those who can't assume, it was Supernatural, which I used to watch in its early seasons, and I'm glad I stopped watching like 7 years ago. But like, it can feel like a genuine like attack. And for Mabel to have this kind of hesitance, a lot of people will point to this as her like inherent selfishness and it makes her a bad person. But it's like, when you're that obsessed with something, it's very, very hard to step back and say, okay, even though it's not going to let me keep having it, it's for the best that I don't have it anymore.
Yeah.
Like, I kept trying to watch Doctor Who after it went bad, and all it did was make me feel awful, because I felt like I was an idiot forever liking it. And it's like, sometimes you just have to have a clean break from something you like, even though you don't want that break, because it's either that or it just goes sour. So, basically, we have the whole subplot with Dipper and Stan now. Like, while Mabel's basically considering keeping these guys forever, they rush up to make-out point where...
It's lookout point, but...
Lookout point. It's make-out point, lookout point. You know, the usual teens go there to go and get hot and heavy in their cars.
And people who play dating sims.
Oh, man. But, yeah, they rush up to save Wendy from Robbie, and Robbie sees Stan run up to the car out of breath. He's like, Mr. Pines? And then Stan yells,
That's Mr. Pines to you!
Oh, and it's... Basically, they show that Robbie was hypnotising Wendy the whole time. And the reason I wanted to mention this is more of a compliment of the show as a whole as opposed to part of the reading, is that Wendy explicitly says, I'm not really mad about the hypnotism thing, because A, I don't really believe in it, and B, you know, it's whatever, but you didn't write this song for me. You lied to me about writing the song.
Stole it from the internet, basically.
Yeah, and you used it to try and basically ignore what I was saying, which you've been doing all along. And she basically breaks up with him not because of the hypnotism thing, because, you know, at this point in the show, people don't believe that kind of stuff is real. So, like, she basically thinks that she was swayed over because he went to the effort of making something for her as an apology. And she breaks up with him. She's like, I don't want to be around you if you're just going to lie to me and, you know, constantly treat me like dirt. And she breaks up with him, and Dipper's like, yay, we won, hooray! And, you know, these two teenagers are crying because they just were in a breakup. And Dipper runs after Wendy like, hey, do you want to go get some pizza or something? And
with me and Stan,
with me and Stan, go bowling. And basically, she turns around in tears, like, what the hell is wrong with you? I just broke up with my boyfriend. Why is every guy so inconsiderate to my feelings? It's like, this is the shit that never happens in these kind of rom-coms, where it's about, like, somebody trying to stop someone else from dating a bad person. It's like, it's still their life you're fucking with.
Yeah.
Like, I know it's good that she didn't end up with this guy who sucked, but, like, it was bad of you to, like, assume that was a win, that you hurt her feelings so badly.
Like, celebrating it is,
Really,
messed up.
Really fucked up.
There's a bit where Stan goes, this is a victory for guys who are too... What was it, too?
Hang on, I've got it, 1 second. This is a victory for every man with hands too weak or too fat to play an instrument. Stan.
I love him.
Love him very much. Wendy basically tells them both to fuck off. Like, all of the guys.
But
Robbie,
in Disney language.
PG language. I think I kind of got this in the wrong order, but basically... the boys in the boy band sing Mabel a song about how she's great and how wonderful it was.
She would never lie to them, and they trust her with all their hearts, and they love her so.
And she protected them from those terrible girls she was best friends with, and she gets guilted into realizing, like, I need to let these guys go. It's not healthy for, like, it makes me a bad person to hold on to them.
If you love something, you let it go.
Yeah, and she decides that she's going to let them go, and Candy and Greta were just coming up to the house again to try and, like, set them free, and then Mabel's like, it's okay, we're going to do it already. And she opens the front door and lets all the boy band out the front door. And he's like, that chubby Z is the sun.
It's staring at me. I'm going to stare back.
It's straight painful, dog.
What is all that green stuff?
Those are trees. So it's extremely funny. And they get let out into the woods and it's like watching Bigfoot escape into the forest.
Yeah. One of them gets down on all fours.
And scampers like a rodent. It's wonderful.
And then they disappear into the bushes with like one last, little choreographed dance number.
And they're gone, and they all make up, obviously. And Dipper and Stan have this whole talk about it was stupid to have ever tried to meddle in Wendy's personal life, which I'm glad was the moral of this storyline of, like, Dipper's trying to get rid of this romantic competitor, because for one, he's in that game. He's never going to get with Wendy.
You can't compete with someone when you're not in the game.
And two, it's bad for your motivation to be, I want to win this person, regardless of how it would affect them personally. So I'm glad they did that. And the episode ends with one of my favourite post-credits jokes.
There's a rumbling outside, and Stan goes, something digging through our garbage or trash. Mm-hmm. He goes out, and one of the band members is rooting through the garbage, and he, chases him away, and he's like, damn beautiful man, always digging through my trash. Wait, what?
The episode ends. It's a great episode. It's one of the very, people will skip it because it's not, relevant to the big plot. That's a mistake. If you like this show, I think you have to acknowledge that a lot of its strengths come from these kind of more goofy slice of life, not plot
standalone episodes.
Yeah, I love this episode. It's incredibly funny, and honestly, the next one we have is more plot relevant. And to be honest, it makes me want to talk about the subplot less. So maybe we should just jump straight into it. I will say we're probably not going to touch on the subplot much, except for me to have my obligatory rant about Ford.
Yeah.
Who I wrote a lot about in the station.
Anyway, so next episode is Season 2, Episode 15, The Last Mabelcorn.
It aired on September 7th, 2015, and you might think, hang on a second, didn't the first episode air 3 years before that? You'd be right, airing cartoons is a nightmare.
So many hideously long hiatuses, and always at the point where it's about to reveal something big, or it's just has revealed something big. Hell.
You are lucky if you get to watch it the first time in just one sitting. Because I was really into this show, and I think you didn't get into it very much in the first place, partially because it was so hard to consistently watch.
I was definitely one of the ones who got really into it on the rewatch, when I could watch the whole thing through.
So this episode was written by Alex Hirsch on his own, and directed by Matt Braley. Last Mabelcorn is quite late in the second season. It would have to be because Ford is only around for the second half of the second season.
And it's when the plot starts to really kick into high gear. And
you can tell it from the opening, where it's a big spooky dream sequence in Ford's mind, and Bill Cipher, evil triangle guy, also voiced by Alex Hirsch, is threatening him to trying to take this rift, which is a byproduct of the portal he came through that's going to destroy the whole universe. Because if you haven't watched Gravity Falls and you didn't care about spoilers, this is going to sound crazy.
Just whatever, don't worry about it. It's not important.
Basically, Ford is Stan's twin brother. He came through he was lost in a different dimension for a while, but he came back. And in coming back, he created this little rip tear thing. I'm really leaving out Stan's role in this. It's very important, but I can't do justice to that without making it a whole podcast on its own. So, yeah. Bill Cipher, evil triangle guy. He's yellow. He has one eye. You've probably seen him if you've seen anything from Gravity Falls. But he wants that rift so he can break it and rip a hole through dimensions and let all his demon friends through. And Ford decides, you know what, I need to talk to the kids about this so they know that, you know, this evil demon is coming. And we then go into the title sequence, which I didn't mention before. Gorgeous.
The Gravity Falls intro is amazing. The music is amazing. The animation is gorgeous. It just, every way, the colors are great. It's one of the best sort of intros of any show ever, I'd say.
Like, I think the only reason it's not held in higher regard is because it's entirely instrumental. And that's not, like, as a criticism. It definitely should be instrumental. It's just that people don't, you know, sing it.
Yeah.
So that's why it may not be as well known. But it is so perfect for the show, and it's got so much energy and wonderful animation. James Baxter, who, if you know about animation, you'll already know, but he is well known for doing a lot of really well known, extremely smooth, fluid animation. He did that one scene in Beauty and the Beast where she's in the ballroom in Taylor's Older Time and she spins and her dress spins with her. And that sounds really like I'm simplifying it, but a lot of his animation is about like incredible fluidity and detail.
Yeah.
And he did part of the intro.
And a great sense of gravity as well.
Oh yeah.
Shut up.
Gravity Falls. And basically, the intro is wonderful and it manages to convey the mood of the show really well, especially when they change it later on. God.
Yeah.
That fucked me up the first time. Mm-hmm. You go back into the episode and it starts as though it's going to be a different episode, but the kids are like looking for a board game to play and they find all these like parody board games, like Don't Wake Stalin.
That's my favourite one.
And they pick up a game that's called What Could Go Wrong, that's clearly just Jumanji, and they joke like, oh yeah, this could fill the next 21 minutes.
Which is the length of an episode, so...
And then Ford calls a family meeting and they don't do that.
A family meeting that does not involve his brother. Because...
Well, he does call Stan, but Stan is preoccupied with his newest criminal venture, pug smuggling, where he's loading literally a barrel full of pugs onto the back of a truck to a guy called Jorge, who's like, you need to take these across the border. This came up in the previous episode. It does not matter. Like, it's one of Stan's many illegal activities, because we didn't mention it until now, but scam artist is kind of, you know, his whole deal. And like, he has a shop now, he has like a consistent scam, but it is a scam, and he's always kind of been a double dealing, dodgy con man.
Yeah.
He's a flim-flam man, as it were. But like, his whole thing is that he does really dodge things, and he's too busy pug smuggling. He's not getting on well with Ford at this point, because like, there's been a big blow up on that.
Yeah.
Understandably. So
watch
like,
the show.
He doesn't come to the meeting, and he's not in this episode much, which, you know, my one note, more Stan, please. Ford sits down with Mabel and Dipper, and Mabel's excited because she's like, oh, does your bag have an owl in it? Am I going to wizard school? And this is where you could probably make the argument that Ford might be on the spectrum, because he literally says, if there was an owl in this bag, it'd be long dead. I just want to mention the actor who plays Ford, because I think it does add a lot to like why people like him so much. He's played by J.K. Simmons, who you probably know as Cave Johnson from Portal, or the
Jonas Jameson.
JJJ, the angry newscaster guy from the 2000 Spider-Man movies, the one who's perfectly cast as that guy. He has a wonderful voice and he has extremely funny delivery, so hearing him say, if there's an owl in this bag, it's probably long dead, is very funny.
He's got a bunch of good lines as well.
But yeah, Mabel is disappointed by that, and like, you know, she is obsessed with magic and all things like girly, so she's a little disappointed by that. And then he says like, have you seen this thing? And they're like, oh yeah, you mean the main villain of the story? Dude, where you been?
Bill, we're on a first name basis.
Where you been? He possessed Dipper for a bit. Like, where were you? I guess in another dimension. But you know, they talk about how they defeated Bill, and Mabel very excitedly supplies once with kittens and once with tickles. And
Dipper says, it was a lot cooler in context.
I need to make it very clear, Mabel was the one who did the beating both times. So, you know, take that, fandom. But also, it's like, Mabel, something I love about her character that was a big problem in cartoons until relatively recently, is that she is unapologetically a very feminine character. But she is also a lot more than that. Like, she's not like a tomboy who's too cool for that, but she's also, you know, not just her entire personality is the word girl.
Yeah.
Like, she is a very specific kind of little girl, which you can tell when Ford brings up they need to get some unicorn hair, and she's gonna be like, yes, I want to do this, and let me do this, I'll give you my blood!
Because they need to, it's like a magic spell to Bill-proof the house.
And Mabel loves unicorns. It's another big obsession of hers. It's very feminine. And she basically says she's going to go get it because she believes that she's pure of heart. Because he tells her unicorns will only give their hair to somebody who is truly pure of heart. And she's like, I'm the purest hearted good person in the world, so I'm going to be able to do it.
Well, what she says is, like, I'm definitely the most pure of heart in this room. And the other two go, yeah, that's probably right.
She also talks about how much she loves unicorns, that she's done some things that are less than okay
She got
morally.
banned from the petting zoo for taping a traffic cone to a horse.
Yeah.
Icon, honestly. I do want to point out when, in the discussion about Bill, how Dipper asks Ford, how do you know Bill? And he basically goes, that's not important.
Fuck Ford. Honestly, I don't mean it that strongly. I don't, because I can understand some of his motivation, but he is a fucking idiot.
Yeah.
I will get to it when I get to my inevitable rant when the scene becomes relevant, but like, he gives Mabel a crossbow. He's like, I've been out of this dimension for a while. It's okay to give children weapons, right?
Mabel goes, come on, man, and accidentally fires the crossbow out the window.
And hits Stan, who yells, quick, it's Vamanos, and you can hear the pugs in the car rushing off. It's ridiculous. They have the Bill-proof mission. It's not relevant. I'll talk about my side tangent when it gets to the bit where it's
the subplot is basically that Ford and Dipper are going to try a different method for, rather than Bill-proofing the house, they'll Bill-proof their mind, because Ford doesn't have a lot of belief in that Mabel is actually going to be able to get this unicorn hair, because it's basically impossible to deal with unicorns as far as he's concerned. Yeah,
he called them frustrating. And I think it's kind of mean that he doesn't believe in her, but he doesn't know her that well at this point, so I'm willing to let it slide.
And to be fair, it is a difficult mission.
So when they go on the mission, they take all of the girl characters with them. So we have Candy and Grenda again, and we also have Wendy this time.
Who explicitly says that she doesn't believe in any of this stuff. She's just coming along to make sure they don't get stuck in a bear trap or something.
Bless, Candy says, I'm here to meet, touch, and or become a unicorn. And also wants to lick a unicorn's neck because apparently it will taste like your favourite flavour. And Mabel gets really close and is like, I will make sure you lick that unicorn's neck. So I love how, like, focused her hyper energy is on this one thing. Like, it's a thing that I can recognise from my own experience with autism. And Wendy's basically just there to stop them walking into a bear trap. That's why she's coming along. She brought her hand axe because she's got a whole lumberjack thing going on.
Wendy's great.
Wendy's so great. I love her. When they come up to this glade and they like summon the unicorn glade and everything because they have to do a magic thing to get it to show up, Mabel does the simmy thing with her hands again. She starts flapping and like hopping on the spot and being really excited. And they go in and they meet the unicorn.
Do you want to say the name?
Okay, I had to write it down and it's taken up literally a quarter of this line. It's Celesta Bella Bethabel.
Got it in one.
Got it in one. And she steps up, Mabel steps up, I'm very sure that she'll probably pass this test. Like, she's not, like, smug about it or nothing, but she's very confident that she's someone who's pure at heart at this point in the story. And Celesta Bella Bethabel tells her that she's a bad person, that she's not pure of heart, and Mabel has that moment of doubt and says, well, I did just shatter a window with a crossbow. And
I do make fun of my brother quite a lot.
And it's like, she suddenly has all this doubt about whether she's doing the right thing. And she's decided, you know what, I'm going to come back and be pure of heart next time, so I'm going to do as many good deeds as possible. So this becomes her new fixation, is doing good deeds. And
we get a great montage of just Mabel and the girls running around town doing good deeds.
Yeah.
Like planting a tree right in front of someone's door so they can't get out of their house.
Like, it's the thing of it's a common thing in autism diagnosis, and it's not one that really pertains to anyone I know with autism, but it does happen where there's commonly an issue with not being able to conceive consequences. Like, not being able to imagine it, because one of the triads is to do with the ability to imagine things. So, like, you will do a good thing.
What are the triads?
So the autism triad of impairment is basically a way that some people understand autism and diagnosis. And there's 3 areas where those impairments come up, and it's in imagination, social communication, and social interaction. Those last 2 are very similar, but social communication and social interaction are distinctly different. Like, it's not a thing that's relevant here because we're talking about imagination, because essentially what the problem would be is that someone can't perceive or imagine what the consequence of what they're doing is. So planting a tree right in front of someone's door because planting trees is good and it helps the planet, not realising they can't open the door afterwards. Like, Mabel's very impulsive, but I don't know that, I think you could probably argue that that's not necessarily entirely impulsiveness. It's just, like, a lot of the time she really just doesn't think of what the consequence will be. Like, if she slowed down and thought about it a bit more and talked it through, probably she would, but not in this case.
Yeah. So she's got a checklist and she's checking off all these good deeds she's done. And I wrote down my favorite ones too. Sponsor clown.
Yeah.
And abolish electoral college.
Hell yeah, Mabel. She's also the one who wanted to legalize everything when she was briefly made president. No, a congressman. She was made a congressman at one point.
Yeah, don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it.
But yeah, I agree. Abolish the electoral college. If there's one thing I understand about American politics, it's that the electoral college is shit.
Yeah, Mabel's on the right track. But basically, more stuff with the bill ideas and Forward and Dipper. And again, we can skip it because it's just, you know, high tension stuff of like Ford being vague as hell. Basically, when Mabel goes back, Celeste Bell says, "You're still not pure of heart," and Mabel gets really upset. She starts like saying, "But I've done so many good things, and I'm trying really hard." And Celeste Bella Bethel says the coldest thing I've ever heard a character say, which is, "It's not my fault you're a bad person." Which is like, oof. This is a thing that like really reminded me of a lot of the bullying I experienced as someone who was autistic and didn't know it. It's this thing of like other people saying, "Well, it's not my fault you're doing the wrong thing," but it's like, I don't even know if I am doing the wrong thing. I don't know. I feel like I'm trying my best. Why doesn't that count for anything? But you know, like Mabel is really upset and runs out and decides, "I'm going to come up with even more good deeds until I have done enough to impress you."
She has a little bit of an identity crisis where she's, you know, she's basically asking, if I'm not a good person, then what am I? Because being, a very kind, helpful person is a really big part of her, how she perceives herself.
Yeah, it's something she really, likes about herself. It's not just, this is my identity. For her, it's, one of the things she thinks is good about herself is the fact that she's a kind, good person. And, she does this thing, it's from another episode, but I want to bring it up here, where she pulls her sweater, because she wears a different sweater every week. It's very cute. It's a big part of her design.
Because she knits as well, so she knits her own sweaters.
But, anytime she's really overwhelmed and upset, she will pull her sweater over her head and, curl up really small and go to Sweater Town, is what she calls it. But it's basically her doing what I've done before, which is, when you feel really overwhelmed, you just want to block out all sensory input. So you, curl up really small and you hide under a blanket or something that's going to keep all the light out. And it just made me think of that. I don't know if that's, a stretch, but...
I don't think so.
It's more evident in the previous episode where it happens, where she's in this weird dating thing and she goes to Sweat Town, she's just rocking back and forward and talking very monotone and not really being able to express herself that well. So I think it's a thing that made me think of her in one of these situations where girls with autism who mask really well and appear to be coping really well, when they do have these kind of more obvious signs, it's often oh, okay, I guess you weren't making it up, you know? So at this point, all the other girls have decided no one's going to talk to Mabel this way. This is bullshit.
Yeah, fuck this unicorn. But Disney language.
Yeah. Wendy decides this is dumb and I don't like this unicorn for being such a horrible person to Mabel.
She says hoof bag, which I love.
Basically, she doesn't buy into the whole I need to be a good, kind person thing at all. Wendy doesn't care about that. She's we're not unicorns. We're not perfect. We're crazed.
Sweaty animals.
We're women and we take what we want.
And then she punches a tree.
Wendy's great. They go on a whole little heist thing where they, they trade for some fairy dust so they can knock out the unicorn and steal the hair rather than get it the proper way. And there's a whole, I don't want to go into it because it's not relevant, but it's really funny. There's a whole little sting operation thing they do with gnomes.
The gnome police.
Yeah. They knock out the unicorn, the little satyr that's with it starts signalling SOS on the panpipes.
I love that
before they
joke.
Chloroform it. It's ridiculous. I don't know how they got away with that.
Oh, I love this show.
And they're about to steal it steal the hair when Mabel runs in and snatches the scissors off them and says, "No, you shouldn't do this. We're trying to be good people." And Wendy's like, "You need to stop. You're going to wake it up. You need to not, they're not going to give you the hair. They're a bad person." It's like, "No, but this matters to me. I think I'm a good person. That's important to me." And then Celeste Bella Bethel wakes up again and decides that Mabel will never...
Mabel's with the sisters.
Yeah, and decides Mabel will never, ever be pure of heart. And then...
two other unicorns come up and they're like, are you doing this thing again this pure of heart bullshit thing again?
So it turns out that the whole thing is a scam. And unicorns are just shitty.
Yeah.
They could give their hair to anyone they wanted. They just don't really want to be bothered by humans, so they pretend they have to be pure of heart. They even say that like their horns can't detect the pureness of someone's heart, which is what they've been told to believe.
They glow and they can play rave music.
And Mabel full-on snaps.
Yeah. She rips the unicorn off her sweater and throws it on the ground.
Which is a big deal for her.
Yeah.
She does also say, like, all this time you were saying I was a bad person, but you're even worse than I am. Which I really love the wording of, because she doesn't say, I am a good person. She's saying, like, I know I'm not a good person, but you're way worse, so what right do you have to judge me?
Yeah.
Like, it's an important distinction, because, like, Mabel... when she snaps, like, this unicorn starts taunting her and saying, like, what are you going to do about it, huh? I don't want to give you my hair because I just feel like being selfish. What are you going to do? Huh? And she punches that unicorn in the fucking face. Like, glittery blood comes out and everything.
Oh, no, it's not blood because it's Disney. It's
not.
tears.
Yeah, unicorn tears. Then they get into a massive fight with unicorns, which we don't see. Apparently that was scripted at one point, but it got cut for budgetary reasons. Also because animating 3 unicorns fighting a bunch of teenage girls probably would have been very strange. We go back to the Dipper and Ford plot, and this is where I'm finally going to get to the point that I was going to make before. Because basically, in all this time, Dipper's been left to, like, wear this weird brain scan thing so he can protect his mind. And he's like, but I still don't know anything. If I put it on Ford's head, I'll be able to learn about what his connection to Bill is because he won't tell me. And then he puts the scanner thing on Ford, and Ford's brain is, like, filled with some real scary, sketchy stuff to do with Bill, where he's, like, shaking Bill's hand and saying that they're going to be partners until the end of time and all this kind of extremely incriminating stuff.
Yeah.
And Dipper gets really scared and backs up, and then when he knocks down everything, there's just Bill posters and, like, tapestries.
All over, like, Ford's secret underground bunker room that they're in.
Genuinely very scary. And then Ford gets up, like, from where he was sitting, like, he was sleeping until this point, and he says, you shouldn't have done that, and he throws the machine down and breaks the screen. He doesn't break the screen, he throws the machine down, and, like, slowly starts walking towards Dipper and saying, you need to give me... the rift that you have, otherwise it's not safe. And Dipper gets, like, freaked out. It's like, are you with Bill? Are you being possessed? What's happening? And Ford just keeps saying really vague, unhelpful shit. And Ford, he's just so... I don't understand why people jump to his defense and act as though he's done no wrong in this situation, when objectively, if he was less vague and less of a dick, I would probably be way more on his side. Like... It's the same problem I have with characters in... here it comes, guys. Are you ready for the Star Trek tangent?
It's time for a Star Trek tangent!
But basically, the issue I have is the same issue I have with a lot of Star Trek things, where it's like, the smart person is framed as being in the right just because they're smart. So this happens with characters like Picard, who I do not like. Where there's this really big issue of just, like... Because they're the smart person, because they're the scientist, therefore they've done no wrong. And it's like, scientists are usually the ones doing quite a lot of wrong. That's why we need, like, all sorts of people keeping an eye on them. And, like, I don't really care for Ford's, like, inability to communicate clearly about anything. Like, he hides so much shit from people for no good reason. He's pulling a fucking Sherlock card where it's like, it would only benefit you to be cool about this.
Yeah. And I think the show agrees with that. It's just that the fandom can sometimes be a little bit too eager to... Because people aren't like, can't do nuance, and they're like, either a character is the perfect baby angel who can't do anything wrong, or they're pure evil. And you can't find that middle ground where it's like, he did some things wrong.
Yeah, and, like, also, I need to make this clear. The part of the reason I have such a, vendetta, it seems like, against Ford, and why I have such a strong opinion, isn't even really to do with fandom. There's something he does in the show that the show never really addresses the depth of how messed up it was. So his lab assistant, Fiddleford, his whole mind gets destroyed by all the stuff that Ford does, and indirectly he destroys his own life. Ford never really takes any responsibility for that, and never really, like, engages in what he did.
Unless you read the bonus literature, I guess.
Which you should. The Journal 3 book that came out is extremely good and definitely worth reading, but, like, it feels a little too little too late. They very much underplay how messed up that is. Like, it's full, like, oh god, it's just full horror level kind of, like,
I mean,
eldritch madness.
Yeah, it's literally eldritch madness, or the closest thing you can get to that in a Disney cartoon.
Quick side note, fuck everything to do with the original, like, creators of Eldritch Madness stuff. It's all racism. It's racism all the way down.
That meme about Lovecraft's cat.
Yeah. If you don't know what Lovecraft's cat is called, take a guess at the most racist thing you can think of. You'll probably be right. But yeah, that's a side tangent. You had my little side tangent on why I feel that way about Ford, and to be honest, I'm a bit hesitant to talk about him as an autistic character. Not because of, like, I think it would be a bad representation. It's just because, like, I don't think I could analyse the character fairly. I have way too many, like, personal feelings about him to be able to, like, do a fair legitimate analysis. So, you know.
Also, he isn't in the show that much, so there isn't really a lot to analyse, I'd say.
Yeah, that's true. Basically, Dipper and Ford are sitting there feeling sorry for themselves because in his stupidity of being vague as hell, Dipper shot a memory gun at him and it broke their bill-proofing machine. So now they got nothing. And then Mabel shows up with unicorn hair.
She says, did somebody say unicorn hair? And Dipper goes, no. Oh, that would have been perfect. Anyway.
Look what I got. And she, like, waves the unicorn hair in his face. And I need to point out, it's not like they cut off a lock. It looks like the lock has been ripped out of this unicorn's head.
And they're covered in rainbow spit or tears, or definitely not blood, because it's the Disney cartoon.
She basically says, like, oh yeah, we beat the hell out of these goddamn unicorns. They actually gave us all this treasure, so we leave them alone. They just dump a huge pile of treasure on the table. And Mabel, like, offers the hair to Ford. It's like, did I do good? He's like, you're a good person, Mabel. Which I don't know why he said that, because it makes no sense in the context of the conversation.
Did you see the rest of the episode, Ford? And Mabel goes, thank you, Grunkle Ford, but today I learned that morality is relative.
And then that point is punctuated by Stan, for the first time in the episode, reappearing, running into the room, picking up an armful of the treasure on the table, screaming the word money as he runs away. Oh god, it's so great. And, like, the fact that Mabel comes to terms with, like, morality is relative. Like, these kind of kid shows that have this very, like, you should always be good. It's like, you can never always be good. That's not how people work.
I feel like that joke it kind of, like, works best by the fact that this is a Disney produced cartoon, because Disney is sort of, you know, constantly lambasted for having these, you know, very simplistic and totalitarian almost morals about morality.
And it's like with like these autism reads, a lot of the time, like, being good means, like, you know, behaving or forcing yourself to behave in a way that's, like, completely against your nature. And it's like, these messages of be yourself but also be good cannot coexist.
Yeah.
It just doesn't work that way. I think we should probably get to our conclusion.
Yeah.
Basically, if you can't tell how we feel about the show and whether we can recommend it as an entertainment product, I don't even listen to the episode very much. You should maybe start over.
Did you listen to this podcast as you were falling asleep and you were sort of, like, drifting in and out and you weren't really paying attention to what we were saying?
I don't know how you got through Tilda's intro and fell asleep, to be honest. Like, that would have...
What are you talking about? That was super soothing.
Sleepy time podcast. But yeah,
that was ASMR.
Obviously, it goes almost without saying at this point. We recommend this show. Reading or not, it is a wonderful show. It is one of the best animated shows that has ever been made. And I would argue one of the best programs that have ever been made. I genuinely feel like no matter who you are, no matter what your taste is, it has spooky moments, but nothing that people can't handle. It pushes it more than you think a Disney show would be able to get away with, but it's always so effective. And I love the show, and I cry every time I see it end.
Same.
Every time. But more relevant to our actual podcast topic, I mean, obviously you recommend it. I was going to say, do you want to recommend, like, a specific episode as your favourite?
Oh, that's hard. I like a lot of episodes. I think, for me, the one when I was watching the show the first time around, because the first few episodes are good, but they're very good in that normal cartoon where it's like, oh, it's funny, and they got, like, fun characters and stuff.
It's like Scooby-Doo-esque in the beginning. It's not it's not as gimmicky as Scooby-Doo, but it's very much each episode is self-contained and has a monster every week.
Yeah. But the episode where I realised that, this show is the shit, was The Hand That Rocks the Mabel, I think it's called.
Mm-hmm. That was the one that had Sweater Town that I was talking about earlier. So if you're interested in seeing that...
Which I don't want to say what happens in the episode, but it was like when I realised, this show is actually, you know, concerned with, you know, writing its characters with more depth, and also actually portraying its female character with, you know, sympathy and depth, and delivering some actually, you know, thought-provoking messages to its audience, which I'm not going to get into that episode and what it's about, but yeah, that was when I realised this show is the shit.
I was on the verge of putting it in there, but due to what it's about, it is about a romantic thing. I won't say exactly what, but, like, I didn't feel like I could really speak to that experience very well. because I am ace. And also because, like, a lot of the experiences that it goes through, I feel like are more just general, like, not autism experiences specifically, but, like, experiences a lot of women experience when they start dating.
Yeah.
Which is still done really well and definitely worth watching and wonderful episode. It was very close to being on here, but the last Mabelcorn just beat it out because of the whole good person messaging. In terms of the autism read, I think the mileage varies depending on how you feel about autism presentation in women. Because, like, if you want to be able to just pin things to Mabel as a character and say, this is an autism trait and this is an autism trait, it's not that straightforward with Mabel. It's not like with a character like Sherlock Holmes where you just have, like, a list of traits that you can just pin to him very concretely. And I honestly think the show is kind of better for that. Like, I think you can argue that some of the reads are a little bit of a stretch, but I don't think it's any more of a stretch than, like, saying this little girl is autistic and I can tell because of her extreme, like, obsession with boy bands or unicorns or with trying to present herself in a very specific way. Like, it's a read that meant a lot to me because it's very hard to find characters who are little girls who are autistic. Like, we said this before, it's so hard to find female characters who fall onto the spectrum, partially because of this, like, gender disparity in how it presents.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously you can't speak to the same personal experience, but when I suggested Mabel as, like, an autistic character, did you think you could see it?
Yeah, like, because at this point, you know, I've heard from you about a lot of the tropes and also a lot of, you know, this idea of how autism presents differently in girls and women. And yeah, like, I think I felt like it was a very good choice to talk about her. And also, I'm always happy to discuss Mabel because she is one of my favorite characters of all time.
We didn't even talk about her pet in this, who I'm not going to spoil because he's fucking adorable. Wonderful, wonderful. But yeah, long story short, positive. Nice change from last week, which was negative.
Yeah.
So we will be back in 2 weeks. We are going to try and stick to this schedule. Next time, just to give you a little hint, we are watching something that is going to be timely to us, but the time it comes out, it'll be a little bit past the time we're talking about.
Well, it's fine because the thing we're timing it after isn't very timed at all because it's a single day that's been going on for 2 weeks.
God, that could be almost any celebration at this point in the year. But yeah, it's a little more obscure, so I don't know if everybody will have even heard of this one. I know you haven't seen it before, so I'm excited to see it get into that. But yeah, we'll be back in 2 weeks, and we hope to see you then. This was Spectrum Projection with your hosts Hannah and Tilda. Our theme music is Summer Longing by Tilda, and our art is also by Tilda. Send us suggestions for future topics to spectrumprojection@gmail.com. Thanks!
Bye!